Award-winning natural bodybuilder and international executive chef Ramel Griardi shares his best recipes for building strength. Sports performance trainer and nutrition expert Joe Arco coaches us through the nutritional components of those recipes and shares his knowledge working with professional athletes.
If you avoid eating salmon because of its strong, fishy taste, you're in luck, because today Body Fuel Chef Ramel is going to show us a great way to lighten that fishy taste of salmon, which is an amazing muscle-building protein source. We're also going to combine that with some couscous. But today we have a little trick for you. We're going to add a little thermogenic punch to that couscous to have you burn more calories without having to do anything at all.
Anything at all?
Nothing.
Nothing. Great.
Now, for people at home, we talked about, the fishy smell of salmon. How can we teach people to buy salmon, what to look for, and how to kind of decrease some of that fishy smell when you're making the salmon?
Well, when you are in the store and you're looking at salmon, you know what? You want to actually smell the salmon. The salmon should smell like the sea, not the fish.
Fishy.
Not fish, but the sea.
If the salmon that you're buying already has a strong fishy smell to it, put it back.
Or if there's a little bit of a slime to that, it's probably bad already. If you are buying a whole salmon, you want to look at the eyes, Chico.
The eyes never lie.
The eyes don't lie. So whether it's salmon or halibut or tilapia, you want to look at the eyes. What you're trying to look for is a clear eye. The clearer the eye is, the fresher it is. If it's clouded over, it's probably already bad.
Now, what kind of salmon do we have here?
We have actually sockeye salmon, which is wild salmon.
Okay, now this is an Atlantic salmon. There's 3 different types of salmons that you can get pretty much. We have the Atlantic salmon, we have the farm-raised salmon, and then the Chilean salmon.
Exactly.
Now, the benefits of the Atlantic salmon is that it's got a higher fat content. Reason being, it comes from a very cold climate with the cold water. The colder water will force the fish to have a lot more fat to keep warm. That fat means higher omega-3s, which is great for your body. That higher omega-3 content, if you're looking to build muscle and stay healthy, does a couple of things for you. One, helps reduce inflammation, helps promote overall health to keep you healthy. Also, it really helps support the immune function and keep weight off.
Now, Joe, I put a little bit of a grid to this.
I noticed that. So on the skin itself, you're actually cutting that a little bit.
Yes, just to give it a little bit more flavor, so the flavors actually build into the skin itself.
So the marinade can kind of seep through there.
That's exactly it,
Excellent.
Joe. Now, our marinade is just going to be very simple, very easy. We're going to paste this aside.
Making sure whenever you're cooking with meats, it's very important not to cross-contaminate. So when we're using some raw fish, chicken, beef, whatever it is, make sure you either have 2 cutting boards, 2 sets of knives, and when you're done cooking or making the fish, set that aside.
Now, I want to take the lemon, and I just want to juice a little bit of the lemon, but I'm also going to take the rind. The rind of the lemon or the lime actually has more of the flavors inside of it. It also has a lot of the oils, essential oils that's inside the actual
So that's where a lot of that smell is going to come
Exactly.
from. Now, lemons and limes are such an interesting type of fruit, actually. Reason being, they're so acidic in nature. Not only that, but they're very high in vitamin C, and they really help pull a lot of the toxins out of the body as well. Now, how much of the rind are you going to be using?
Just a little bit of the lime rind and the lemon rind itself. And if you want to, and you want to keep the lemon or the lime, I'll show you a little trick, Joe. There's a little trick I had learned a long time ago. You want to actually take the lemon or lime and just squeeze it this way. That way it just breaks apart a lot of the fibers inside of it.
Gotcha, so this is before you're actually going to juice it up.
Exactly. And if you want to keep the lemon or lime in your fridge for a little longer, and you're just losing a little bit of the juice, you just want to cut the little piece off here, the nib, and you just want to place a little X. The X will help you actually juice the lime and lemon.
Now, for those that don't have the muscles that Ramel has, who you can see, probably needs to work a little more. He has a little bit of problem squeezing that out right now.
But you'll get the lemon and the lime, the juice out of that. As
there
you
you
can
go,
see,
muscle boy.
There you go. And without having the seeds as well too. And if you have a little bit more juice left over, you place it into your fridge, it'll keep it a little longer as well too.
Nice, good little tip. So what's gonna make our marinade here? So we have the lemon, we have the lime.
And we have a little bit of fresh dill.
I find dill and fish just go so well together.
Whether it's salmon or snapper, it's actually a really good flavor for it. And now we're gonna add our salmon inside here.
What about the agave?
The agave is the actual glaze that we're gonna place onto that salmon. So we're not gonna place that right away. We're just gonna let this marinate for a little bit.
Okay, now agave is a pretty interesting type of substance. It's very similar to honey, where it's very, very sweet, but the difference being it has almost 0 effect on blood sugar levels like honey would. It's actually extremely low glycemic, and like I said, it won't spike up the sugar levels like honey would.
And you know what, Joe? It's actually the way they make tequila. Once they actually ferment the agave, it becomes tequila. That's why if you look at the tequila label, it'll say they're 100% agave.
I never noticed that before.
There you go.
Okay, so we're gonna get this up to a nice high heat.
And we're gonna add a little bit of extra virgin olive oil.
Okay. Are we gonna do all the cooking process of the salmon in the pan?
No, we're not. We're actually gonna sear off the salmon, so bring in all the juices inside there, and then we're gonna place this in our oven.
Okay, now is that preheated?
It's preheated at 350.
Okay.
And we're gonna place it inside there for roughly around 10 to 12 minutes.
Which is perfect, 'cause that's pretty much all the time that we need to make our couscous and our vegetables.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're gonna get this heated up nice, get that oil spread around.
And now we're gonna place the salmon into our hot pan there.
Now
But
when you're
first of all,
seared, oh, a little
first
salt
of
and
all,
pepper.
salt and pepper, always season your food.
Now when you're about to sear this off, how do you know whether to put the kind of flesh side up or the skin side up?
So always, this is the flesh side.
Okay.
So you wanna place the flesh side down first
Okay,
to get that even coloring.
gotcha.
And let it cook. Don't actually move your pan around. Let it cook, let it rest.
Sorry,
What
Mel.
what a lot of people have a problem with when they're cooking, they like to be a little bit too overzealous and they start moving around their pan, and that's when it starts to stick. You could actually cook a lot of your foods on this.
Now how long do we need here per side?
We were just looking at 2 minutes aside.
Okay, so just enough to get a nice little browning.
Exactly. So a nice little browning on there. Can you grab me that pot there?
Sure. Now in the meantime, we're gonna be starting with our couscous pretty soon. Do you want me to get this water boiling?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we're gonna get this going here. How much water do you want in this pot?
Pour the whole thing inside.
Now when we're making the couscous, are we gonna measure this out? We're going by feel?
We're gonna go by feel and by taste. So now we have our agave and our pommery mustard, which is a seeded mustard.
So this is gonna be our glaze now.
Our glaze, that's
Okay, so we didn't marinate with that. We just marinated with the lemons, the limes, we had our dill. Now that this is about ready to go into the oven, we're gonna apply that glaze. So I'm assuming if we applied that glaze too soon, that would start to burn in the pan.
That's exactly it.
Okay, do you want this off?
Yes.
Okay.
Now we're placing this into our 350-degree oven for roughly about 10 to 12 minutes.
Now when you're putting that in the oven, do you wanna make sure that the flesh side is up, like the skin is up or the skin is down?
The skin is down.
Okay, so we're making sure that if you do have the skin on the actual fish, the skin side is down now, and that's gonna cook in there for approximately
10 to 12 minutes.
Okay, so within this time now, we're gonna bring this to a boil. We're gonna start prepping our vegetables, making our couscous. We have some asparagus here, we got some green beans. This is gonna be awesome.
Now what we want to do is we want to chop up our onions and our garlic as well
Okay.
too.
And I noticed you're gonna get that garlic a little bit of a smash there.
Yes,
Is that a little
that's
chef trick?
Yeah, just to get it nicely broken up.
Okay. How many garlics are we gonna be using here?
We're gonna use 2 cloves.
Okay.
This one is chopped, and now if you want to, I can show you how to mince the garlic.
Okay, now what's the difference between mincing and chopping?
It's a lot more finer grade.
Okay, now can you actually mince just by cutting it more, or is there an actual technique?
What the technique is actually is we take a little bit of kosher salt
Okay.
or rock salt, and you will just want to smash that down. And what it does is actually works like almost like a sandpaper on there.
So you're almost using the salt to break down the
Exactly.
actual garlic.
As you can see, all the juices of the garlic start coming out.
Now that looks a lot different than what you just did over there.
Exactly. What you're doing is you're mincing it.
Okay. Now I'm going to assume that, do you get more flavors out of doing that? A lot more of the juices coming out?
Exactly.
Okay. So we got some asparagus, we've washed it, we got our fresh peas that are nice and washed, ready to go. We're going to get this going, we'll get some garlic.
And some shallots.
Shallots. Now, how are shallots different than regular onions?
Well, shallots are a little bit sweeter. It's between a Maui onion and a red onion, actually.
Okay.
So it's a little bit more sugars in there.
So now as opposed to, either baking or steaming our French beans, we're going to actually kind of saute these today.
Exactly.
And we're going to add a little bit of flavor to those with our onions and the garlic.
That's exactly it. So what we want to do is we want to take a nice fresh asparagus, and you know me, Joe.
I know you, Ramel.
I like to cut it in a bias.
Now, bias, nice fancy way of saying angle. I usually say angle. He says bias.
And our French beans. What we did to the French beans is we kept it whole. We just took off the tops because it's a little bit hard to eat.
Now, our garlic here is nice. We've got some caramelization here. How long is this going to cook for?
You're going to cook it for roughly about between 3 to 5 minutes.
So not too long.
No, not
so we're going
too
to keep a
long
little nice crunchy taste to there.
Exactly.
Now our water is now boiling here.
Perfect.
And let's get our couscous.
Yes, couscous. Now, there's a little trick that I have. I like to take my couscous and I like to add a little bit of olive oil in there.
Why is that?
Well, the olive oil will actually help it from sticking. A lot of times when you're doing couscous, sometimes
very clumpy.
Exactly. So all you want to do is swish that around a little bit.
Now you actually taught me something pretty interesting. Couscous isn't actually a grain.
No, it's not. It's actually a pasta.
Now the nice thing about this pasta, A, it doesn't take very long to cook. B, it's also very high in fiber, low glycemic, and pretty high in protein. In fact, couscous is about 12% protein. So when you think of normal pasta, you think carbohydrate source. But couscous is an amazing carbohydrate. It's very easy to digest, making it a great energy source. And it's also very easy on the intestinal tract as well.
Now, if you can, Joe, could you just cover that with a little
Sure.
bit of plastic wrap?
So we're basically just kind of let that heat stay in here. The couscous will basically absorb that water, and while it's absorbing that hot water, it's going to cook at the same time.
Now, Joe, what I'm actually doing right now is start to chop my peppers.
Now we're going to add these peppers to the couscous, and here's where the thermogenic punch comes in. Peppers, yellow, green, and red peppers are extremely thermogenic. What that means is that once you ingest these, the body will actually increase its temperature, burning more calories. So while you're eating this couscous with these peppers, you're going to be burning more calories just by eating this meal.
That's amazing, Joe.
I'll trade you.
Perfect.
Get this out of the way for you. So we're going to add that. The colors in here are amazing, plus the texture. So we have a nice diced, small pieces of peppers. We have that nice nutty flavor of the couscous, so that will blend very nicely.
Why don't you blend that up with a little bit of, with your spoon there, please.
Okay. Now, carbs are extremely important when you're building muscle, when you're trying to work out and you have the energy. And you need that energy to work out. Now that looks fantastic.
That's exactly it, Joe.
Let's start plating this meal. Now what's interesting, while you're plating this meal, this is a pretty similar meal that I just gave one of my fighters who was training for a world title fight a little while ago. His exact lunch was almost exactly like this, where we had couscous, we didn't have the peppers in there, salmon, and a mixed green. It's a perfect combination of some energy, some healthy fats, some protein, and some fiber from the vegetables.
Now, could you pass me those tongs, please?
Sure. There you go.
Perfect, Joe. And I'm going to grab the beans and asparagus. Now,
Those look fantastic.
All I want to do is place that on top there. Look at that, Joe. Amazing.
Now it's also, I notice here we have some good portion control as well. You're not packing on that plate. When you're using a plate this big, I find, they actually studies show that when you're using smaller plates, you can actually control your portions a lot better. So be careful when you're using a huge plate like this. Don't feel the need to, surround that whole plate with all the couscous and all the beans.
And just a little bit of dill.
Now this looks absolutely fantastic. Now this is a pretty good sized piece of salmon here. And
about a 6 ounce.
A 6-ounce piece of salmon is going to give you about 45 grams of muscle building protein. It's going to give you some great omega-3 fatty acids to help with the body. We have some nice fiber with our vegetables and a very good, clean, easy to digest carbohydrate source with the couscous. Plus that thermogenic punch from the peppers. This was fantastic.
It looks incredible.
Next time you're looking to add salmon to your muscle building meal, try Body Fuel Chef Ramel's beautiful recipe here. Salmon with agave with a bed of couscous and some beautiful greens.